Hey everybody, welcome back to the Addison Smith Show. We've got a great show for you today. What is an American? That's the subject of the monologue. And it's a necessary one given the ruling handed down by the U.S. Supreme Court on Tuesday when they decided 6-3 in Trump v. Barbara that the 14th Amendment's citizenship clause guarantees automatic blanket citizenship to all children who just so happen to be born in the U.S., striking down Trump's executive order that sought to deny citizenship to children born to parents who are here illegally or temporarily. Chief Justice Roberts wrote the majority opinion, joined by 3 liberal justices plus Amy Coney Barrett, and 3 conservatives dissented. The core legal question around this case was whether kids born in the U.S. to parents who are here, again, illegally or temporarily, are, quote, subject to the jurisdiction of the United States under the Citizenship Clause. The Citizenship Clause reads, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without the due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. So all persons born in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the U.S. Notice it isn't just those born here. It's those born and subject. But how can a child be subject to the jurisdiction that his mother isn't? We see explicitly the framers acknowledge that no, it isn't enough just to be born here. They qualified it. You must be born here and subject to the jurisdiction here, not within the jurisdiction, which is an entirely separate idea. And you saw that in the end of the clause, and in the Equal Protection Clause of the Constitution uses that term as well. That equal protection under the law applies to anyone within the United States jurisdiction. So it's interesting. 2 different applications of jurisdiction are in the Constitution, being subject to it or being within it. The latter is self-explanatory. You're born here, it's simply a fact of where you were born. But that is obviously not the same thing as being subject to a jurisdiction, because if it were, then the framers wouldn't go out of their way to use 2 completely different phrases to describe the exact same thing. So under an originalist reading, there isn't any other way to see it than the obvious. A child born away from his mother's home is subject to the jurisdiction of her home, despite being within the jurisdiction of not her home, a foreign land. But yet the highest court in the land is refusing to acknowledge that there is any distinction there, refusing to admit that the Citizenship Clause carries with it 2 stipulations, not 1. I mean, if it just said all children born in the U.S. are citizens here, the ruling would be justified. But if it did read that way, we'd obviously need to amend the Constitution because that's ridiculous. No, the framers specifically added a stipulation, a necessary condition. So that's the first point I want to make in all of this. There is a necessary condition, and it's not just to be born here. The second element to this is that the precedent that was used to justify illegal alien babies magically becoming citizens, the best precedent that was given in the arguments was the United States v. Wong Kim Ark in 1898. Wong was born in San Francisco to Chinese parents who were lawfully, permanently in the U.S., but he was barred from naturalizing under the Chinese Exclusion Act. Essentially, he had left the country for a trip. He came back. The government tried to deny him re-entry, arguing he wasn't a citizen. So SCOTUS ruled 6-2 that he was, in fact, a citizen by birth under the 14th Amendment. Already, are you finding this a persuasive precedent compared to a Guatemalan running across the border? I'm not. Wong's parents were here lawfully in the United States and here permanently. The entire point surrounding the case this week was answering whether or not the child of someone who's literally the opposite of those things is also a U.S. citizen. So on the one hand, you have two legal permanent residents, and on the other, you have Juan Carlos's mom who swam across the Rio Grande and fled on foot from Border Patrol 2 hours before going into labor. And we had 6 morons on the Supreme Court who said, yep, they're the exact same thing. No difference. I mean, where do you even begin? It has to be the dumbest rationale and weakest use of precedent from the Supreme Court in my lifetime. To be an American, according to our alleged highest minds in the United States, is to get off on a technicality. And that brings us to the third and final point here. Why the 14th Amendment was written. The 14th Amendment was written to rectify Dred Scott v. Sanford. This was you probably heard it by now, but it was an 1857 SCOTUS ruling that declared any black person, free or enslaved, were not U.S. citizens. But the problem with Dred Scott, and Clarence Thomas pointed this out in his dissent, was that it wasn't about birthright citizenship theory at all. It was about excluding people on the basis of their race. That's what Dred Scott was, and the Supreme Court rightly corrected it. And this was the opening argument Clarence Thomas used in his dissent, and we'll read just a portion of his dissent because it's so beautiful. It was 90-something pages, by the way. The Supreme Court decision, Clarence Thomas's dissent, he says, we would have denied permanently citizenship to blacks as, quote, a subordinate and inferior class. After the Civil War, the Reconstruction Congress overruled Dred Scott, first with the Civil Rights Act of 1866, then with the Citizenship Clause of the 14th Amendment. Both the Civil Rights Act and the Citizenship Clause guaranteed citizenship to persons born and domiciled in the United States regardless of their race. Neither guaranteed citizenship to persons who were not domiciled and in the United States. Blacks were entitled to citizenship because they were Americans. They had no other homeland, owed no allegiance to any foreign power, and were subject to no other authority. They fought and bled in the same battles, gained and gloried in the same victories, and were liable to be called upon to defend America in a time of war alongside every other citizen. The Citizenship Clause thus guaranteed them the dignity and glory of American citizenship so as to ensure they would never be treated as second class under the law. The same cannot be said for children of temporary foreign invaders. Foreign temporary visitors were attached to their home country, lacked similar bonds to this country, and would not be called upon in a time of war. So Americans, consistent with their settler ethos, believed that citizens were people who called a place home. Accordingly, domicile, a person's legal home, played a key role in both state and national citizenship in America. A person was a citizen of the state where he had his domicile. When foreigners temporarily visited, their national character was unchanged. This is correct. I wish we could clone Clarence Thomas. No, obviously this is the intent of the 14th Amendment, specifically to address racial injustice in Dred Scott. Of course, African Americans are also Americans. They were permanently residing here. They were totally disconnected from any other country. It makes sense. What doesn't make sense is expanding this to every single person who hopscotches across the border, and often to include birth tourists. This is an actual phenomenon where foreigners are specifically exploiting and perverting the Constitution to benefit them. A 9-month-old pregnant woman comes from China so that she can have a baby, so that baby is automatically a citizen. So now that she has a permanent foot in the door in the United States, it's an abomination. So all of what we've gone over begs the question, what actually is an American in the truest, realest sense of the term? We'll try our best to answer that after the break. Welcome back. What is an American? Is it paperwork that makes you an American? Is it an oath? Is it being born here? Perhaps to help continue to answer what an American is, it would be helpful to answer what an American is not. So here to help us do that is Miss Montse Lewin, a woman who tragically managed to obtain citizenship here from Mexico. Let's listen to her story about becoming a citizen.
Let me hold your hand when I say this. We do not move to America because we think it's a better country. We move here because it's a little less worse than our other countries. Because you're stupid to think that we moved to this country for some hot dogs and some baseball. We have better vibes, music, food, culture, history, literally all of the above. We just move here because we are looking to make more money and offer a better chance for our families. Did you know that the minimum wage a day, not an hour, a day in Mexico is not even 15 American dollars? Not even 15 American dollars. Right now with $15 in San Diego, I could go maybe buy a matcha and half of a granola bar, honey. If you support ICE, you support people getting destroyed. If you support families getting destroyed, I hope you rot in hell. And I will see you there, babes, for sure.
Well, she seems nice. First of all, she probably should have studied English a little harder before coming here. She said America isn't better than her country, it's just a little less worse, which is what better means. So that's number one. Number two, a little less worse is already an incoherent term. It's like saying, I'm the most best soccer player, the most bestest soccer player on my team. There is no most bestest because that's just the best. So in her case, I guess you could say she's the most least goodest at being the most bestest English speaker, but neither here nor there. Her entire rambling video is about how America's awful, even she doesn't like it, even though she enjoys all the benefits of it. Nothing about it is superior to any other country, not the culture, traditions. No, the only edge America has, thus the only reason she's here, is because she makes more money than she would in Mexico. Now, I would like to point out to the president, Mr. Trump, Mr. President, if you can hear this, Montse Lewin needs to be deported. Donald Trump, you remember the guy, Donald Trump, if you can hear me. But seriously, Montse Lewin admitted on her own Instagram she has become a U.S. citizen, so she might not be thrilled to know that when she took her citizenship vows, she made some promises to the federal government. One of those being that she will, quote, support and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. But most notably, that she will, quote, bear true faith and allegiance to the United States. So correct me if you disagree. I'm pretty sure that saying you hate America and you're just here to make a dollar constitutes as a violation of your pledge to have faith and allegiance towards the country you joined. I mean, what do you think? If I joined a club and I promised to love that club so much that I would die for that club, and then come to find out I'm only in it to get the club's money, what should happen to me? Obviously, I should be kicked out of the club. So please, if you're watching this, clip this. Let's tag Tom Homan, spam him. Let's let them know that we have a naturalized American who's bragging about not having faith or allegiance to the United States. And speaking of bragging about not having any allegiance, it's not random loser TikTokers in California, not limited to them. It's elected officials in our government, like Congresswoman Delia Ramirez.
Diciendo unas palabras en español porque yo soy guatemalteca con mucho orgullo, primero que soy americana.
Well, I did have to find out what she actually said there because I don't speak Spanish. Turns out she said, and this is a verbatim quote, I am a proud Guatemalan before I am an American. Milat Kiros, who just defeated a 15-term incumbent in Colorado. You're about to hear from a future congresswoman and self-described socialist who wasn't born here, whose only claim to American citizenship is because her father won something called the Diversity Visa Lottery. So here is part of the fruit of that diversity.
What's your vision for abolishing ICE?
Yeah. I mean, it's just that we abolish ICE. This is an agency that started in 2003. We had immigration enforcement before ICE existed. We'll have it after it exists. But the thing that I don't think we talk enough about is also what that reform is going to look like. Abolishing ICE is just one step, right? Democrats have been in power multiple times over the last few decades and did nothing to address the immigration reform that we actually
ICE
need.
Expenditures, increased spending.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I think there has to be an immediate pathway for every single undocumented immigrant that's here in this country today that does not require them to shell out thousands of dollars to go through the process, for it to take decades at a time to be able to get to citizenship.
So in case you didn't know who was platforming her, that would be another beneficent of birthright citizenship, Hassan Piker, born to Turkish parents and raised in Turkey. Piker is also an avowed socialist who's leveraged his fairly large platform to help people like that secure positions of power in the U.S. government. Around this time, he was also hosting Francesca Hong, another self-described socialist born to non-citizen immigrant parents, and he raised something to the tune of $50,000 for her campaign for Wisconsin governor. The place that she credits as the birth of socialism in the United States, and promises that electing her will, quote, change the game for the entire country. Are you starting to see the problem yet? People who have no historic relationship to this country, or weren't born in this country, or were born in this country to parents who weren't born in this country and don't reside in this country and are not citizens of this country, are all locking arms and electing each other to run this country, to fundamentally alter the cultures, customs, and traditions of this country. Here's another one, Representative Adriano Espelliot, probably not saying it right, of New York, born in the Dominican Republic and moved here when he was 9.
We are the owners of that document, the Constitution, an elastic document that will stretch to include everybody. And so we will continue to stand united to defend that document, protect our freedoms, and fight for America, for every child, so that every child has the opportunity to achieve the American dream.
An elastic document that stretches to include everybody. So I guess everybody's an American? That's the implication? It is, and it's not a very subtle one. He says he's fighting for, quote, every child to come here and achieve the American dream. Open door policy. There's hundreds more like this that we could play. We could roll these clips for the entire show. But if everyone is an American, then no one is an American. And these are great examples of people who I wouldn't dare to consider my fellow Americans. And all of them should be denaturalized and deported as subversives who are here for one reason: to transform the United States into something else. Which brings us to being American. It means something. It's not because you were born here. It's not because you filled out a piece of paper. It's not even because you took an oath. What it means to be a citizen of any country can actually be wonderfully informed using Scripture. All Scripture is profitable for teaching, 2 Timothy says. And that includes teaching what it is to be a nation. There's actually a theology of nations outlined in the Bible. Nations are never accidents. In Acts 17, Paul tells the Athenians that God made from one man every nation of mankind, having determined allotted periods and the boundaries of their dwelling place. God, quote, marked out their appointed times in history and the boundaries of their lands. Why did he do so? Verse 27 tells us, so that they would seek him and perhaps reach out for him and find him. That's the theology of nations. God is sovereign over countries, places, and ordains people, places, and boundaries not by accident, on purpose. So a nation is a people sovereignly ordained by God who are bound together by shared history, shared culture, shared inheritance, and yes, to an extent, but not exclusively, shared blood. And this is where the Old Testament actually gives us some helpful categories, if we're willing to look at them honestly instead of flattening everything into modern political slogans. In Israel, in the Old Testament, they had graduations of belonging to a country, to a nation. Specifically, there were 3 categories of people in the Old Testament describing their relationship to Israel. There was the native-born Israelite. This is the full covenant member born into the people, descendant of Abraham. Then there was the sojourner. A sojourner in the Old Testament is the equivalent today of a non-citizen who is here integrating and assimilating into the United States. So not at all what Monsi Lewin was doing, or any of those candidates for Congress or members of Congress. One who lives among the native population but does not have full political or voting rights. And then there's the third category, foreigners, who haven't joined the community. They were without settled residency. They're simply passing through and have no attachment to the land and no obligation to it. I think that sounds right. I don't see anything objectionable about saying that. America isn't just an idea that you sign up for. It's a people that was formed, largely Anglo-Protestant, with a particular language, customs, and moral order shaped by our founders. And here's the thing about these distinctions. They protect both. They protect all parties. Both the outsider, because we recognize that he's still entitled to some form of justice, and it protects the integrity of those whose parents, whose grandparents, whose great-grandparents and great-great-grandparents, and on and on and on, have called this same land home. So when we ask what is an American, I think the Christian answer has to be richer than born on this soil, full stop. It's about a people. It's about an inheritance, an inherited faith and set of loyalties. And it's about love rightly ordered. You love your family before strangers, your neighbor before the nation, your nation before mankind in general. Not because those other people matter less in God's eyes, but because that's how God built us to love well, in ordered circles, starting close and moving outwards. We'll be right back. Well, speaking of people who hate America, there's a new poll out from Elon University published in June, which found that the majority of American Democrats would rather not live here. So we'll throw up the findings, I think we have them, and we'll read a little bit from campusreform.org's report. It says, a new survey from Elon University found that a majority of Democrats would prefer living in another country rather than the United States, underscoring growing ideological divides over patriotism, national identity, and perceptions of the American dream. One of the June 2nd survey's most notable findings showed that 55% of Democrats answered yes when asked whether there is another country where they would rather live today than the United States. Only 10% of Republicans responded similarly. The results suggest that many Democrats view the United States less favorably than Republicans, despite Democrats continuing to participate in the country's political and cultural institutions. The survey found even more dramatic differences regarding America's upcoming 250th anniversary. 68% of Republicans reported feeling proud about America 250, while only 18% of Democrats said the same, and on and on and on. So about 1 in 2 Democrats say they would prefer to live somewhere else. You can tell they're really convicted in their beliefs by how they don't do anything whatsoever about it besides complain online. Like, I don't know if you know this, but you can just leave. You can just get out of the country. We are more than happy to set up a GoFundMe, buy some plane tickets for everybody who wants to self-deport. I think it's like, I think you have to take a denaturalization vow, and it's like $2,000, $1,700 or something. I'll put together a GoFundMe. We'll raise some money for it, and you can hit the road. And then less than 1 in 5, they say, are excited about the 250th birthday of America. And speaking of America 250, Scott Jennings, he's the conservative CNN contributor who basically just gets paid to make his colleagues look dumb. Awesome guy, needless to say. Here he is on Anderson Cooper discussing the decline of patriotism on the left.
We have a patriotism gap in this country. Republicans love this country. They're patriotic about this country, and Democrats aren't. They just aren't. They're not proud to be Americans, and therefore they're not interested in celebrating America's 250th birthday. And I don't think it's all about Donald Trump. This has been a steady downward trend for the last 25 years. And it's sad, but we've got two parties in this country. One loves it, and one appears to be hating it more and more by the year. And I think that is a sad thing. We live in the greatest country in the world. The president proclaims that message all the time, and that's something that ought to unify all Americans, but Democrats just can't seem to get behind.
But Scott, isn't the president proclaiming his face all the time? I mean, it's up on front of the Justice Department. He's remaking Washington in his image with his name on things. I mean, isn't that part of the issue? I mean, you're saying it's hate of the country. I don't hear a lot of hate of the country from people who are Democrats in D.C. It's dislike of the president.
Well, I would encourage you to listen to some of the interviews that have been given by the Democrat candidates who have recently won primaries. And I would encourage you to read the polling that's come out just this week, in the last few days, from the Gallup organization about the patriotism gap that exists. I'm sorry to tell you, Republicans love this country, and they always love it no matter who's in charge. And look, yes, Donald Trump has put his picture on things. I hate to break the news. He's a president of the United States, and he's going to be part of things going on with our government. And our government should be doing things to celebrate the country's 250th birthday. And he's the president, and he's going to be part of it. And the fact that they cannot accept that, or that they would use that as an excuse not to celebrate this country, is pretty sad, in my opinion.
Yeah, it is sad, but it's far from surprising. And we have one more clip. There's evidently a spinoff to the song God Bless the USA. I don't know what the song is called, but we'll just roll the tape of the woman singing it. I think it's a woman. I'm not quite confident because she describes herself as a non-binary they-them lesbian. So who knows, but let's listen.
I'm ashamed to be an American, 'cause God knows I'm not free. And I won't forgive the men who lied and took my rights from me. And I'll stand up against your throne and curse her to this day. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I used to love this land, but God the USA.
Well, you're free to be an idiot online, apparently. Free to travel wherever you want. Free to do literally anything that you want within the bounds of the law. But no, she's not free because she can't murder her child. I'm assuming that's what she means. That's been taken away from her. Even that isn't true. I don't know if she knows this, but Roe v. Wade didn't ban abortion, unfortunately. Most states, it's still perfectly legal. Then she says she used to love this land. Oh, when was that? You're like 15 years old. What good old days? What good old days are you hearkening back to? I'm not free here. Okay, then where are you going to go? China? North Korea? Iran? Iraq? So anyways, we will continue the show right after a quick break. All right, welcome back, everyone. I want to switch gears a little bit because I want to talk about this. We've got more details surrounding Senator Mitch McConnell's health scare last month. I'm not sure if you heard about this, but according to a CBS News report on Wednesday, it says on the same morning Republican Senator Mitch McConnell was hospitalized last month, Emergency medical personnel went to his home to respond to an unconscious person who appeared to be experiencing cardiac arrest, according to a public EMS dispatch call reviewed by CBS News. During the recording, a dispatcher called in a, quote, cardiac arrest, and a medic said that there was CPR in progress at McConnell's address. The dispatcher also said somebody was unconscious. The call came in before 9 a.m. on June 14th. The senator's name is not mentioned during the call, and CBS News has not confirmed the identity of the unconscious person. Audio of the call was first shared by journalist Desiree Townsend. On the same day as the call, a spokesperson for McConnell said in a statement that the Kentucky Republican was hospitalized and was receiving excellent care. No other details were provided about why he was admitted or where. And in a statement the next day, the spokesperson said McConnell, who was previously the Senate's top Republican, is, quote, fully engaged with staff on Senate business and Kentucky matters. That day, Senate Majority Leader John Thune said he spoke with McConnell and he sounded good. An independent reporter, as we mentioned, Desiree Townsend, she got her hands on the 911 dispatch call. Let's listen to that.
Medical local paramedic agent 3, medic 3, ALS response unconscious, 27 in Charlie. Medical local paramedic agent 3, medic 3, ALS response unconscious, 2 CCS in Charlie, close of 2nd Street on Channel 11, 836.
Medic 3, communications. East Army supervisor, CPR in progress. Okay.
EMS 2 respond for cardiac arrest. 217 C3, no CCS in Charlie. EMS 2 response for cardiac arrest. 217 C3, no CCS in Charlie. Close of 2nd Street on Channel 11, 843.
Medic 3, got EMS 2 coming.
So you can hear her saying ALS, which is a code for advanced life support, which means they're not sending in regular EMTs, they're sending in a specialized team. And that is frankly what they do when someone is dying if they're not already dead. And then you heard the guy on there saying that they're starting CPR, the victims in cardiac arrest. This happened over 2 weeks ago on June 14th. And since then, Mitch McConnell has not been seen in public. No photos, no videos. He's totally absent from Capitol Hill. He's missed votes. Who knows how many more votes he could miss. And they're saying, oh, he's fully engaged on Senate business. John Thune said, yeah, he sounds locked in. Dude, are you kidding me? This guy is 84. First of all, I wish him well. I hope he's okay. But he's 84 years old. He's been in office for 41 years. Half of his life. And he's worth like $70 million. It's not like he's trying to pinch pennies right now for retirement. So just be done. I mean, what's it going to take? Earlier this year, he was hospitalized for 8 days. Last year, he fell in the hallway. He fell again during a congressional luncheon. Before that, he fell a third time and got a concussion and fractured a rib. And he's been seen on camera looking like a deer in the headlights on more than one occasion, frozen and unable to talk. I think we have a clip of that, actually. Let's roll it.
After finishing the NDA this week has been good bipartisan cooperation and a string of
Okay, Mitch? Anything else you want to say, or should we just go back to your office? Do you want to say anything else to the press? Go back.
Go ahead, John.
I'll take it back. Let's go back to you.
Go ahead, John.
And that was 2 years ago. Now, the good news is that he's already declared that he won't seek re-election. So come January 2027, he'll be done. But what exactly are we supposed to expect from him for the next 6 months? To be locked in? This is why we need term limits. I've said it for years. What is it the chances of dementia skyrocket in your 70s, right? It's like it triples or quadruples in your 70s. So why don't we just say the cutoff is 70? I mean, why are we allowing people who make decisions directly impacting how the country goes, who are like doing it from a hospital bed? I can't wrap my head around it. It's sad, but prayers for Mitch McConnell, and we will be right back after a short break. All right, welcome back. Well, we established it was a rough week for the Supreme Court with the egregious birthright citizenship ruling, but they did get one thing right. They weighed in on the issue of men and women's sports this week, and they ruled that yes, states can exclude men from competing against the gals. Reading now from SCOTUS blog, it says the Supreme Court on Tuesday ruled that states can exclude transgender athletes from women's and girls' sports teams. The justices ruled unanimously that laws enacted by Idaho and West Virginia do not violate federal civil rights laws, but they divided over whether West Virginia law violates the Constitution, at least with regard to the athlete in the case before the court. In his 29-page opinion, Justice Brett Kavanaugh wrote that, quote, consistent with Title IX and Equal Protection Clause, we hold that the states may maintain women's and girls' sports for biological females. They may determine eligibility for women's and girls' sports based on biological sex. The Constitution and Title IX do not require an overhaul of women's and girls' sports throughout America. And Justice Sonia Sotomayor, in an opinion joined by Justices Kagan and Ketanji Brown Jackson, contended that, quote, the majority extends great sympathy to those it favors, the young cisgender girls and women who play sports. I share that sympathy. Playing sports can lead to benefits that are immeasurable and may understandably invested in ensuring that competition stays safe and fair. Because the majority, however, inflicts a hardship on those it disfavors without giving them the fair and full opportunity the Constitution requires to litigate their contentions, I respectfully dissent. The court's decision in West Virginia and Little v. Hecox came just over a year after the Supreme Court, also by a vote of 6-3, and upheld Tennessee law banning the use of puberty blockers and hormone therapy by transgender teenagers in specific. So this stemmed from Idaho's Fairness in Women's Sports Act in 2020 and West Virginia's Save Women's Sports Act in 2021. It required participation in public school and college sports to be separated by biological sex. And obviously it was challenged. It's been years in the making, and now SCOTUS has spoken. So naturally, the legacy media had a day over that. Trans erasure, blah, blah, blah. There's one clip, real quick, that went viral on NBC News where a trigger warning was given over the terms biological male and female.
Just a quick note here. The terms that we're using here during our reporting, biological male, biological female, the High Court put those terms in quotations in their decision and their dissent. But just so you know, we're using those terms from the decision itself, biological male, biological female.
You know, as embarrassing as this is and as laughable as it is, I got to say I'm kind of offended by the terms too. I'm just offended in the opposite direction, because prefacing male and female with biological is redundant. And it assumes that there's non-biological males and females. Like whatever kind of male or females is there? What other options are there? There's not one. You're either a guy or a gal. You don't need to add a preface to it, but of course they're offended because they don't want to have any distinctions. They want everything to be the same. Stick around. We'll be right back. Well, in this day and age, it's very easy to be exposed to poor Bible teaching, bad hermeneutics, which just is the study of Scripture. And one of the biggest dangers we have to be careful of is avoiding this thing called eisegesis. You have exegesis, which is letting the Bible interpret the Bible, its context, language, grammar, historical setting, author's intent, how it fits in with the full counsel of God's Word. The opposite of that is eisegesis, which is forcing your own ideas and clever word plays or whatever experiences or desires into the text to basically make it say whatever you want. Sounds dangerous, right? Well, it's because it is. Failure to properly interpret the Bible has given us LGBT-affirming churches, denial of the Trinity, merit-based salvation, and all kinds of other heresies. So when I saw this clip the other day, this is Mike Todd, pastor of Transformation Church, it concerned me. Let's listen to his read of the creation account.
And I need to mess with your theology just for a second, because in the beginning, I think everybody knows this, when God created everything, he said, let there be, and there was light. But that light wasn't the sun. Let there be light. Everybody thought the sun came on. But the Bible tells us that it was day 4 that the sun and the moon were created. Let me just give you a little tidbit. The source of light isn't the S-U-N. The source of light is the S-O-N. In the beginning, let there be light. That was Jesus. He's the source.
Okay, so the light described in Genesis 1:3 is not actually physical light. It's Jesus. How does that measure up with the scriptures, though? Well, the very next verse goes on to say, verse 4 and 5, God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and he called the darkness night. So though it may sound on the surface like a nice play on words, it's not only wrong, it's also a heresy. Because he's calling Jesus a created being. But if Jesus was a created being, he couldn't be God. And certainly not fully God and fully man as we know he is. And so this is where we have to let Scripture speak for itself. We go to John 1:1. In the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God. The Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made by him, and apart from him, nothing was made that was made. Jesus is the Word, the Logos. John 1:14, the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. Now, elsewhere in John, Jesus is called the light of the world and the light among men, but that does not vindicate Mike Todd, because the light spoken of in Genesis 1:3 is something specifically that God created, that he brought into being. That's why he said the earth was formless and empty. Darkness hovered over the surface of the waters. And God said, let there be light. So all of that to say, may not sound like a big deal, but we worship a triune God, an eternal God. And so how we think about God matters immensely. And that'll do it for the show today. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.